Language seems to be a starting point for a lot of projects. The language of a place, or the language of a culture, or the language of a genre. Miami definitely has a language. It's also a physical language, a typology of building, a landscape. So when I mean language, it's not just a text, although text is a really important part of it. And here you have also multiple languages, that are spoken. So that definitely is something that is, I think, intrinsic to how you read Miami and how you work. My name is Oolite Kedan, and I'm an artist. I have a background in architecture and urban design, and I think what that does is that has something to do with really understanding systems and looking at contexts and shaping environments. And I've always painted and made things, and I think at some point I just decided I would try to grow that part of my practice. Without having a particular agenda, it was just a kind of impulse. It's something that grew organically. And here at the Art Center, I'm still figuring it out. So the Art Center, it has really given me an opportunity to test more projects and try more things. The practice has to do with, I think, it's really context-oriented, and it's really process-oriented as well. And I find them to be just as interesting or sometimes just as important, and sometimes more important than the resulting object or image that's created. It's the difference between, if you look at a city skyline, you look at a landscape, and you see like a static image versus like the way a biologist looks at a landscape. They see an orchestra of processes that are happening. And it's an amazing thing. It's an amazing way to see a place. So this is the studio. I'm trying to model a watershed, and I'm working with a biologist and aquatic scientist. I'm trying to work with fluxes, flows, forces, change. And so I figure that I have to start with a kind of computer model that I can use as a base from which to start testing these simulations. Research is a big part of my practice. I tend to need to do a lot of research to figure out a project, to figure out like the conceptual and the technical aspects of it. It becomes a way to work through something. I started with these cardboard things to start with, and these actually failed. They didn't work. They're just ways of trying to get like a segment of a watershed, just trying to kind of get a piece of something, model it on the computer, and then start acting on it. So somehow I think whatever the output, and the output can take various forms, like a book or a video or an installation. Those are all kind of byproducts of the research in a way. So they are kind of ways that the research is given form. At the same time, I'm always trying to make something that is legible on its own, in which you don't need to have a backstory, you don't need to understand or even know anything about the research. In terms of the larger question of like, why bother doing this? Like, what am I trying to do? I think it's part of some kind of need to try to connect with or communicate with our present condition. And part of that present condition includes the deep uncertainty and change that we're living in. And maybe it's not so much about finding solutions for what we need to be doing, but more trying to recognize our present condition and trying to navigate through it. Maybe that's a start.